on every TV and radio show possible about seeing a second suspect arrested. This person disappeared from Earth. What kind of country are you living in where a terror suspect can be taken off a plane, never indicted, never arrested, we never know his name? Which takes me back to the Wheeler murder. Wheeler.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
Air Force.
Yes, sir. Please.
Remember talking about that one before, right?
Yes, sir.
And what is this? Is this 10, 12 days later? We don't have a cause of death. We don't have an investigation. We don't have any stories about it. It's like we have a government official who works in germ warfare, a government official who works in chemical warfare. Not only that, we have a decent guy, one of the people that helped push through the Vietnam Memorial, someone that's worked with veterans, a Harvard grad. We've got a West Pointer. This guy, and the only news stories we have is that maybe he was mugged, or the reason he was killed and found in the back of a garbage truck is because his pants were dirty. What do we start telling our kids? Next, if you go outside, don't fall and skin your knee because you'll be murdered and put in a trash truck. No police investigation, no suspects, no cause of death, no motives of any kind, no background on anything he worked in, nothing. There have been orders from the top of the U.S. government, or wherever the U.S. government gets its orders from, since I'm not sure it's in charge here anymore, to crush this case. And then we get hit with another one. This one doesn't add up either. 3 years of programming with the U.S. Army, taken out to a staged political rally where security and video have been removed, and people start dying. And then soon afterwards, this is where it hits, Clay, gun control. Now, this idea that gun control is a lefty thing. Now, there are certainly a few idiots from what we call the left. But who are they in reality? I find them little more than paid dukes from the press. They're like cartoon cutout morons. Pretty much like like Sarah Palin is a cartoon cutout moron.
Oh, you mean we should go to war with Iran? Palin, is that the one?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that. Oops. I'm noticing we're picking up an echo here.
Yeah,
I do love technology.
Let me see if I can get that off. I think I can. Okay, that should be better.
Okay. Well, we saw that yesterday Benjamin Netanyahu demanded that the U.S. Develop a credible capability in theater for invading Iran, a country with 13 million armed people. Now, Iran has 13 million armed people, and Benjamin Netanyahu wants the United States, as he wanted us to invade Iraq to go after their non-existent nuclear weapons, wants us to go after Iran. However, there is no credible evidence of any kind that Iran has a nuclear program and has had since 2003. As a matter of fact, there's credible evidence that no such thing exists, that there is not now, nor will there ever be, a capability of building nuclear weapons there. Any statements to that effect are contradicted by hard intelligence and are wildly speculative. Not only that, anything that Mr. Netanyahu has ever said, pretty much in his life, if he told me it was tea in a cup, I know not to drink it. This is somebody who has never been caught telling the truth. And just jumping back again, Mr. Netanyahu's agents in the U.S., they're the ones that just announced that as soon as the shootings occurred, the first thing that hit the papers, now if you remember this, is that this was an act of anti-Semitism. It was announced everywhere. The blood hadn't congealed on the ground, and this was an act of anti-Semitism because Gifford was a Jew.
That's why ABC News called me within the hour after the shooting.
Well, and let's talk about Gifford's Jewishness. Now, first of all, as her being a member of Congress, her voting record with veterans and key social issues is an excellent one. I know people that know her, and they like her. They like her, they like her husband. They say she's good people. She did something extremely wrong, and it didn't seem extremely wrong to her, and that's a shame. That's why I wrote about moral relativism, but let's get there. She's faced with an election where, and this is, they call it the lesser of two evils. I need to get into office, and if I don't get into office, this person I hate, this Tea Party candidate, who is an extremist of some kind, and not trusting Tea Party candidates, even if you're a decent American who believes that they're going to push for the Constitution, I'll tell you, I'd like to sit down and talk to you about it, but none of it's real. If they're getting publicity, if Fox News says they're okay, they're not real. Just leave it at that. And, we don't even have the time to cover it. But Gifford's instead, in order to be elected, found she had a Jewish relative. Now, this having a Jewish relative on the paternal side, you understand that doesn't make her a Jew?
Yes.
If you have a paternal Jewish relative, you do not qualify. You are technically not a Jew. You can't move to Israel. You don't qualify for Israeli citizenship. What she qualified for, by discovering this relative. Now, this is interesting, because let's say you discover you've got a relative that's a Jew, and if you know it or not, folks out there, if I go into all of your family trees, there are about 60 million of you that have Jewish relatives. That many. 40% of Americans are German Americans, and there isn't a German American family out there without a Jew in it somewhere. If you didn't know that, you kind of need to. If you got this idea about race or who's what or racial purity, that's not American. You're crazy. If you think like that, you're nuts.
I've been attacked lately by the Aryan nation or the Christian identity types. I said I've got no problem in believing that my relatives crossed the Caucasus Mountains to escape slavery and became called Caucasians. I don't have any problem with that, but every time you refer to blacks as mud people, Jews as kikes, Chinese as chinks, you're shooting yourself in the foot, and you make me look bad because I happen to be white too.
Yeah, if you're doing that, you know what you are? You're no better than a Zionist.
That's right. You have lowered yourself to. If you want to go out and kill the Mexicans who are being forced up here, they're part of the plan. This whole New World Order, one world government type always manipulates populations.
Clay, absolutely. Of course, I'm under the impression that most of these Aryan groups are deeply infiltrated and financially supported by Zionists, are continually pushed by them. I know that my articles are submitted to Stormfront by Jews. Now, why is this? Of course, because it's an ADL Israeli game to try to go after people. Well,
right.
Go after me all you want.
To make us look bad. Now, let me ask. While we're on the subject here, this is part of the manipulation that's going on. There's supposedly a website out there called Truth Out, and they're pretty big here. They've got one guy that writes for them, and I've run into him before. Wouldn't run any one of his articles, but William Rivers Pitt. And he just talked about Jared Lee Loughner waded into a group and fired a bullet into a representing Gifford at the time. And then he says, I just thought you should know a few things about the people you helped into their graves and hospital beds this weekend. Yes, you false patriots who bring assault rifles to political rallies. You hack politicians and media personalities who lied through your stinking teeth about death panels and Obama's coming for your gun.
Clay, let me run into this, and I will tell you that the rhetoric, and it isn't rhetoric if you think you're on the left or right in this country. And this is what Clay and I would tell you right now. If you've ever used the term liberal, socialist or death panel, please do this. If you've got a voter registration card, put it in the sink. Put a match to it. Don't ever vote again. Unplug your television. I'm thinking don't even leave your house, especially to buy food, because Darwin didn't mean for you to survive. If you're so stupid, so absolutely stupid, that you listen to any of this, you don't have a larger brain than Terry Schiavo, the person who'd been dead for years, that helped push, because all you're doing is you are supporting anti-American totalitarian agendas that use your stupidity to take the rights away from the rest of us. Now, Pitt, now this is the rationale. If people carry around assault rifles, well, hey, I'm a gunsmith. I do weapons restorations. Guns are my life. On the other hand, the idea, this is a classic here. This idea of what's wrong with Obamacare. Well, let me tell you what's wrong with Obamacare. The one thing wrong is because Obamacare was a coalition effort with the Republican Party that took hundreds of billions of dollars and placed it in the management. This was the trade-off of crooked investment companies tied to the neoconservatives, where that money is going to be stolen the way the trillions of dollars were stolen during the Bush administration that pushed this country into a toilet. Now, whenever you're talking about Obamacare, whatever it was, there was only one purpose. It's certainly a black and white issue. Poor people can show up in a hospital. Oh yeah, they're totally right. You're right. Poor people can show up. And poor people can get some kind of medical care. Not the quality you get in Canada, Britain, Germany, or elsewhere, but you get some kind of medical care. I live in the U.S. I'm a disabled veteran. I get my medical care at the VA. I haven't had medical care at the VA other than dental, and I do love my dental group there at Toledo, by the way. Thank you, guys. But any other medical care? 5 years. Nothing at all. The care quality, and I don't say this is consistent across the U.S. for the VA, but the care quality is despicable. The last time I was seriously ill, I was in Britain, in Dorchester, at 6 in the morning, showed up at a hospital, within 5 minutes had 2 doctors and IVs in my arm, and had medical care I've never dreamed of there. I pulled out a Visa card, better after treatment for a woman, serious illness, while I'm walking out, and they said, we can't take money. Charging people for health care is wrong, morally wrong. And this isn't the kind of country that does that. I think, yep, first of all, I didn't have anything on the visa bill. Secondly, I had quality medical care from people who cared in a hospital where I will tell you, the beds were old, the paint was coming off the walls, and nurses were mopping floors, but people were being taken care of when they came in the door. And it wasn't a racket of 200 Medicare, Medicaid people bringing their kids in for $500 runny noses, where the few remaining people with health insurance go to private facilities, and the underemployed, uninsured, semi-insured majority of Americans live in this world here where they can't get health care, where their kids never have their teeth looked at, where they can't get glasses, where they can't get quality medical care, and where any kind of medical emergency, medical problems in the U.S. are the single largest cause of bankruptcy. All you have to do is drive through a subdivision here and look at the empty homes. Where are those people now? Well, where is their health insurance? All those empty homes, all of those people, all of those people don't have health insurance. And if you think all of them belong on some welfare program, they all are going to immediately qualify for Medicaid or show up in the emergency room continually for $1,500 worth of cough syrup in that racket. Well, the battle against Obamacare and the money behind the Tea Party and the conservative movements here, I'll tell you where it's come from. A lot of it's come from the $65 billion a year worth of narcotics trade in Afghanistan that the U.S. has built, fostered, and worked for. And I can't tell you how much hard evidence we get on this.
Our troops are guarding the opium poppy fields over there. And by the way,
we're importing fertilizer to grow opium poppies, and I promise not to let some of it out. But I know that the FBI for 11 years now has had hard evidence against members of Congress.
Okay, let me stop you right there. Today is THC Wednesdays, and in my book Mystery Babylon, which I've got the whole story of Operation Watchtower. This was a joint operation between the CIA and the Mossad. Colonel Edward P. Catolo sent his team down to Colombia to build radio guide towers to fly. They flew 100 planes into Albrook Air Force Base, and the cargo was cocaine, which then went up to Mena, Arkansas, a nice little protected airport. And the CIA and the Mossad were the ones bringing the drugs in, and we know that they smuggled heroin in through the body bags from our brothers in Vietnam.
Well, no, I will tell you, Clay, that now that there were arrests on the body bags, that was one case that was proven. Now, Clay, this is a blind alley here, oddly enough. The people involved were African Americans, and they were, let's say, there was heroin smuggled inside body bags, and probably all of it came to about a pound.
Okay.
I will tell you, however, that bundles of heroin in the hundreds of kilograms weekly were returned to the U.S. on Air Force planes as materiel. We had drugs shipped into the U.S. on military containers. And going after the body bag issue, even with 58,000 official dead and far many more unofficial dead, and that's another story for another show, but there was a basic problem in Vietnam. The Army club system in Germany that had developed through the 50s and 60s had gotten involved in black market drug smuggling, had developed a major criminal conspiracy out of Germany of non-commissioned officers. That same organized crime operation, a major one, showed up in Vietnam. All senior Army NCOs. Now, some of them were arrested in jail. Those records are available. Others were not. But there was a major Army criminal organization operating. And later, of course, the CIA was certainly involved in not just massive drug smuggling, but it was... See, our Army was in Vietnam. These drugs weren't just coming out of Vietnam. They were coming out of Laos, which was supposedly controlled by the communists, who seemed more than happy to sell drugs to the CIA, and many of them out of northern Thailand, areas where no U.S. troops officially ever were. The business, of course, and how this was done, long-range but aging C-34 helicopters were continually ferrying narcotics in and out of Thailand, in and out of Laos, and in some cases, I believe, even in and out of North Vietnam during the war to be shipped home on military transport. And as far as the Latin America issue, the guy who broke this open as much as anything else that's still alive anyway is Michael Rupert. And we want to thank Michael Rupert for his lifetime of efforts of making this public, a truth teller. I've known Michael for many, many years. Michael has been through a lot for what he has done. And if any of you can certainly look up his publications and his recent films, what Michael Rupert says, Michael Rupert can back up. CIA drugs, but it's this thing in Afghanistan is insane. When the U.S. went into Afghanistan after 9/11, now For those of you who haven't seen the Jesse Ventura show proving, and it isn't Jesse Ventura, it's hard facts, hard science proving that the Pentagon was not hit by a hijacked airliner. Not possible.
Right.
And and those of us in the that are called the alternative media, we have people who say they believe in planes or not. I deal with specialists from the Air Force, certainly pilots who tell me a plane couldn't have hit it. I looked at the tests on the initial B-52 low-level bombing. It was impossible to fly. The first B-52, the strongest plane we have ever built, the first time one was flown 300 feet off the ground at 400 knots, it flew apart. Wing vortex tore the wings off a B-52, and they, of course, are designed to last a century. You cannot fly an airliner under 150 feet at 300 miles an hour. And, of course, this continual, well, they land all the time. Yeah, they land at 140 miles an hour. If you fly one down onto an airport at 400 miles an hour, by the time you hit 200-300 feet off the ground, I can assure you, this is hard science. The wings will fly off. I have engineers from Boeing on my staff. The wings will fly off. And then, of course, here's another idea. You can take the front of an airliner. If you had a 5-pound ball-peen hammer, 3 hits will knock the cap off the front of an airliner. And behind that is a small radar dish. Now, if you think that an airliner punched through level after level of steel and concrete into the C-ring of the Pentagon, do this. Put a concrete block up on a table, take an empty beer can, throw it as hard as you can, and see if it goes through. If it does, you've proven that, yes, the aircraft hit the Pentagon, the aircraft collapsed the World Trade Center, the controlled demolition that Fox News said occurred didn't, and we could have gone, yes, then there was a real Osama bin Laden. He didn't really die in 2001, and we really did find terrorist training camps and a bunker complex in Afghanistan. Now, we all remember when Saddam Hussein was captured and how those films were shown hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Why don't you go back into your memory and see, has anyone ever seen a film of us capturing one of those training camps in Afghanistan? You know, the ones we used to drop Tomahawk missiles in. We went into Afghanistan to go after one of the dozens of training facilities. One was a 12-level underground bunker system where multiple diesel engines from old German submarines were operating, and it had steel doors. You could drive trucks in and out of it. It was air-conditioned. It had swimming pools, TV. I believe it even had a pool room. We've seen the photos. They were shown by Secretary Rumsfeld, the drawings, rather. They're all over the Internet as a comedy joke. And at Tora Bora, the cave complex at Tora Bora was 5 feet deep. A shepherd and a lamb could have slept in it, but they would have frozen to death. None of it existed. There was never a training camp. There was never Al-Qaeda. The BBC
the
pointed
BBC
that out early on.
That's right. I was just going to say that. I believe that did come from the BBC. There was no Al-Qaeda. And what is Al-Qaeda? It doesn't exist at all. I mean, I called it Al-Qaeda, but maybe I'm exaggerating here.
Well, of course, I was on the phone last night. I spent some long days on the phone. I spent 4 hours yesterday with Ken O'Keefe on the phone. And then last night and I'm a TV guy. I'll just tell you, I watch television, and just, what I watch. I think I was watching Muslim terrorists on NCIS last night. But while that was on, I was on the phone with Seibel Evans for probably a couple hours. And one of the things we were going over together, of course, is that while she was a translator for the FBI, she came on records, and this is, since she's not writing a story on this, I'm not going to jump into her bailiwick, but she was very insistent. Well, Gordon, while I was there, I saw continual documents that in 2001, on 9/11, Osama bin Laden was listed as a CIA, FBI asset. He was on the payroll. We were paying Osama bin Laden on 9/11. And this is somebody with a high-level security classification, working as a translator, and certainly a public figure with an impeccable reputation. And I can probably get Seibel on your show, by the way.
I'd love to have her on. Of course, I've publicized the fact that Osama bin Laden is the head of the freedom fighters, the Mujahideen. I mean, we gave him Tomahawk missiles.
Well, and the other thing I'm beginning to find here is that Osama bin Laden's actual role with the Mujahideen, that he never commanded troops or trained anyone, and that he was involved in fundraising as a CIA asset. What Seibel also mentioned, of course, is that bin Laden never had a falling out with his family. And and part of the Veterans Today, we're now a huge publication here, which is, I will say, is an accident, and it was done by, well, we have good writers, and good writers are what it's all about. We tell the truth. We do disagree, and we fight where we, and that's the American part, because we're American military, and frankly, we've got the military in several other countries. I've got on my staff now, I've got a Russian colonel. I've got a member of Russia's security services on the staff. I've got probably 5 or 6 former IDF Mossad people on staff now. A couple of Brits. So it's about half the Pakistani army, but we're expanding here because we're finding that veterans issues are issues for all veterans in all countries, and we all have things in common. And that all of this is like Smedley Butler, the Marine general that said war was a racket.
Yes.
2-time Medal of Honor winner. Said I was a gangster for Wall Street. Anyone that thinks that all war isn't a financial racket, anyone who believes that Israel is being protected from terrorists, all of this, everything that's in the newspaper, everything on TV, everything that's paid for, is nothing but a con, because it's all there to do nothing but steal money. But not just that, all of the politics and this theater out there, this very sad theater where very real people have died in Arizona, is nothing but a game pushing forward. It's pushing forward a totalitarian agenda. In this case, it's going to be additional censorship. They're not going to stop hate speech. They're going to stop the truth. That's what people can't stand. That's the threat. The truth is the threat, and it's all to shut down the truth. That's why
I have been under such heavy attack for the last 20 years by the ADL, the SPLC, and everybody, all these other organizations.
Well, the ADL is I tell you, Abe Foxman and the gang can only stand in the corner and then call people, anybody that doesn't like the idea that Israel likes to use the U.S. Army for killing off their financial partners they don't like, or to help them make money, because it has nothing to do with Jews, Israel, freedom, safety for any individual. It's nothing but racketeering. The people who are most abused by Zionism and the ADL, the people most abused are the Jews in the United States. No group is misused as much as Jews. These maniacs that present themselves as speaking for the Jews in the U.S., and certainly they have bullied and co-opted people where they have a degree of support, but not that much support, not really. That making the Jews of the U.S. real victims is their goal. These organizations will not be happy until there are concentration camps and death camps in the U.S. They're doing everything possible to make people hate Jews in the U.S. That is absolutely despicable. They are presenting Jews who are, frankly, as with the other groups,